Hello, I'm Daniela. In today's video, we're going to slow stitch a felt Christmas bauble. Now, instead of just a round ornament that you hang on the tree, this is a two-dimensional one. So it's not a sphere. It's just a round ornament with some slow stitched embroidery. The beauty of this is there's no pattern, so you can create whatever you want, whether it's scroll work or just geometric shapes. In today's video, I created a simple snowflake, and I added just a few beads to make it really pop. Now this is a little modern take on a Christmas bauble because I'm using white felt and then a bold color, kind of unexpected, like teal or blue or a bright green. You can modify this as you like. If you want something more traditional, use those traditional colors. If you prefer green felt or red felt, use whatever you like. That's the beauty of slow stitching. You create your own piece. There's no rules, there's no right or wrong way. So let's get started.
So here's what the round felt baubles look like. The one that I make to hang on the tree, I just make a backing for, and I do a blanket stitch around the edge. But if I wanted to put it in my fabric book, it might not be necessary. So that's the back. I'm going to show you how I do it today, and I'm choosing to use a white felt. You can use any color felt you like. I also prefer to use a wool felt rather than a craft felt because I prefer working with it, but this project can be done using any felt. It's just a matter of how it feels to you. So let me show you the supplies that I'm going to use today. So now I have the felt for my background color, which is this beautiful white felt, and then I just have some of this gold felt, and the idea is to make the little cap to the ornament. And then I'm going to use just a little washer for my stash here. I'll just choose one just to make that little round wire hook. You can also use a wire or anything you want. You can even wrap this if you'd like. It'll give a different effect. It'll be very pretty. I have these cute little beads. They're just a little rounded and they're green, so I found some matching embroidery floss. I'm going to embroider a snowflake onto my design because I like the way the embroidery stitched ornament looks. In the two samples, I just have little embroidery stitching, some scroll work using a stem stitch, and then just using a little straight stitch here or a back stitch, I have just a little design on a standard bauble. So that's what we're going to do today. So to start with, I have a template here. You can use anything to trace your circle. You can even do it freehand if you're not concerned about it being a perfect circle. I'm going to cut 2 layers for the front and the back of my ornament, and I obviously will choose a circle that will fit on the fabric that I have. So I'll set these other things aside for now, and I'll just sketch out a circle. I choose to sketch it out at the top of the fabric so that I can fold it when I do my cutting. I'll just cut both pieces together. So I just sketch my circle, and then I just make a simple section here, somewhat in the middle of it, for the cap. I can make this as tall as I want. So that's my design. From here, I'll just fold my fabric over so I can make one cut and get both pieces. I can pin it in place if the fabric's too thick, or I can cut 2 separate pieces. I just like to do this all at once. I just turn the fabric and make my cuts. So there I have my front and my back. I can trim down this further just to get the shape that I want. And then I have the front and the back of my ornament. And I can see here, this needs a little fine tuning as well. So now I want to take my gold fabric here, and I'll use the larger piece. I want to cut out all my pieces together so that I've done all the cutting at once. So again, I'm going to cut 2 pieces of this for the front and the back. I can either make one long piece and fold it over, which is what I think I'll do. So I'll just sketch a rough design of the size I'm going to use. And I'll make it just a little longer than I need. And I just want to make sure it's straight. You can see that this edge is not straight here. So I'll cut it straight, cut it to the length I need, and then I'll just make it a little larger because I can always cut it down. So when I have my ornament together, I'll have my cap. I have my little rounded piece to make the little hanger, and I'll stitch that on. But I want to trace a design, and I'll use this as the front of my bauble, and that's where I'm going to trace my design. So I'll set these pieces aside. Any type of design work you want to do before you assemble your ornament. I'm going to make a snowflake, so I'm just going to lightly sketch a design here, right in the middle. It's just a standard little star. And I'll put the center, I'll use one of my little gems here for that. And then I'll stitch lines coming out from that. I'll just stitch around, making these little edges of the snowflake. And then maybe I'll put a little piece on the edge of each of the longer ones as well. Just to make sure that my snowflake is actually a little symmetrical, I'll take a smaller circle, maybe this one here, and just trace around, and that's as far as I want my snowflake to be stitched. And then I'll take a smaller one yet, and that's where I want those center lines to come from. So I'll need an even smaller one. So I'll stitch this, I'll sketch that circle, and now those two lines will come out from that smaller circle all the way around. This gives me a little bit neater of an ornament. So now I'll take my embroidery floss, and I'm going to start by stitching this little circle right in the center. This is a bead that has that center open, so I can just stitch up and down, and I'll do this just on two places to hold it in place right now. And now from here I want to stitch my snowflake, and I'm just going to do a back stitch, and I'll stitch all the way to here, and then I'll come back in and do those little side snowflakes, the little arms of it. So I'll just make one stitch, stitch down, and then I'll just follow those stitches, those back stitches on our design. You can make any shaped snowflake. This is just one design. The key is just to take it easy and go slow and get your finished design, no matter what you're stitching, whether you're stitching scroll work or French knots or anything of that sort. So I have my one arm, and I want to stick my little bead on the end of it. So I'll put that in position, stitch that up, and I'll stitch it over here one more time. And now I'll go back in and stitch those arms. So I'll just stitch it out one stitch from the outside right to that inner circle. And then I'll do the same thing over here, trying to match the stitch just to make it symmetrical. If it's not perfect, that's okay. It's hand stitched and it will look that way. So there I have one arm of my snowflake. I'm going to go back and do the remaining arms, the 7 arms, and stitch little round beads at the end of each. And then I'll come back and take a look and see if it needs any more work or if I'm happy with it. So I stitched all around, and I'm quite happy with the way that looks. I could go in there and add a little more stitching, but that's very effective. So now I'm almost ready to assemble it. But what I want to do is take my little washer here and just stitch it down into place, centered on the top of this ornament here. So I'm just going to take some white thread, and all I'm trying to do is really anchor it into place. I'm going to start by coming in from the center here because my knot will be hidden that way. So I'll stitch down. You can see my knot. Make sure my washer is right where I want it to be in the center of this piece. And then I'll just stitch a few stitches to anchor it in place, to really hold it where it should be. Maybe one more stitch. It's fairly secure. So I'll come up here and I'm just going to knot off my thread. And this way it's out of the way. So I'm just going to stitch through there and knot it off. So now I'm ready to start combining my piece, and I'll do that and use this top to hold it in place. So I'll just line it up the way I want, and then I'll just add a pin. Maybe a second pin just so it doesn't really move. And those pins go through both layers and they hold it in position. So now I want to put my little top on my ornament here. I can decide exactly how I want to fold over this felt, this gold felt. I like to make just a little kind of a scalloped edge, ever so slightly, just on the bottom. It resembles an ornament this way, and it adds a little interest. Now to add my piece, I can just kind of center it on the top and then just fold it over on the back and stitch it down very simply. So once I have that in the right position, I'll take that gold thread and stitch from behind right on the edge here, making sure that my gold top is lining up correctly. And then I'll fold the piece over. And I'll just stitch on one side here, just a few stitches to anchor it in place. And I like to do just a vertical line straight up and down. And it kind of mimics the lines on actual ornaments, but it also really secures the felt in position. So I have that one line down. Now I have all this thread here, so I'm going to just stitch through the gold, not going through the white, and this hides my string. And then I'll come out over here, right in the center, and I'll stitch another line going up top, and now I can fold over my piece of gold fabric, gold felt there. And with each stitch that I make, I'm anchoring it in place. Now it'll get to the point where I can't stitch through this little washer. So I just have to play with my needle and stitch around the washer. I know that there is some spot where it can go, and I just want to make sure it goes through all the layers of felt. And again, when I come to the top, I'll stitch through my gold felt and try and come up behind it, again, hiding my string. So I've come up behind it, and now I'm on the edge here. And again, I'll stitch another layer down, and this holds my felt in position, and it also gives me some decorative stitches. So it's twofold. It's both functional and beautiful. So the front of my ornament is complete. I want to just turn it over and see on the back if I need to do any more. And actually this one worked out very well. My string is coming, my thread is coming underneath my ornament. So I just want to go in there and stitch through the gold felt to make a knot, and then snip it off, and my knot is hidden. So now my ornament is mostly complete, and now it's the time to start securing the ornament together. So I like to do a blanket stitch. To do that, I have thread that matches the felt for the background of the ornament. So if I made this red or purple or whatever color, that's the color thread I would choose. I'm going to come in between the ornament layers here, the white layers, and I'll come right up top here, very close to the edge. And then I can sandwich in my knot. So I'll just fold it down in place. Now I'm going to make one loop through my ornament right to where I came out the first time and leave a little loop. I won't pull it taut just yet. I have that little loop, and now I'll feed it through. And now I'll start again coming in from behind, and I can choose the distance that I want to go. I can either make it very close or very far, sticking to the perimeter of that ornament, making that loop and holding it down. So then I come another stitch. And again, I want to continue to make sure that these ornament edges line up as I go. Making my loop and pulling it down. And I'll do this all the way around the ornament. Show you just a couple more. From here, pull that loop, and so on, all the way around the ornament. So now I stitched all the way around the ornament. When I get to the last section here, I can make one more blanket stitch. So I'll stitch through that. And now I'm going to come up from behind and just stitch little straight stitches going up and down, kind of as if it was indicative of the blanket stitch without the border. So I'm just going to stitch all the way around, again keeping that space between stitches even. And I'll do one more after this. So now my ornament has stitches all the way around it like little spokes of a wheel. And now for the back, I'm just going to try and bend my felt and make a little knot up top here. So it kind of hides it somewhat. And then I'll clip it off. And so that's my felt bauble. Now there are many ways you can make variations on this technique. I happen to like the white with a bright, bold color and just embroidery work. But you can add fabric collage, you can do a whole slow stitched ornament. I just think this is really adorable. And I love that you can make them in any size. You can do miniature ones for a small tree or really large ones for a centerpiece. I just think it's really a very interesting effect. And I hope you do too.
So that's how I create my felt Christmas bauble. It's a beautiful ornament to hang on a tree, but I particularly like it as a gift tag. It's just something I can include on a present to give to a special friend or a loved one. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. And be sure to check my channel for other Christmas slow stitching videos. Some are a little more involved, like my Stitch the Season book, and some are just little quick projects that you can do in an afternoon. Thanks for joining me today.